My name is Todd Gunzy. I've been in private practice for 28 years. I'm part of OrthoArizona, and I've been with OrthoArizona for 3 years.
My name is Todd Haddon. I'm a podiatric physician. I've been in practice in Arizona for going on 15 years. I practiced in Colorado a few years before that. I joined OrthoArizona now, I believe 5 years ago, after Dr. Jason Lake, one of our orthopedic surgeons who's a foot and ankle specialist, he and I developed kind of a vision about wanting to create a foot and ankle institute as kind of a center of excellence for foot and ankle care.
In my residency, I was fortunate enough to have some pediatric foot and ankle training by a few orthopedists who worked at the DuPont Children's Hospital in Delaware. I did my residency in Philadelphia.
When Dr. Gunzy came out of this program, he wanted to give back to what was given to him. He moved to Connecticut and began practicing in the New Haven area at St. Raphael's Catholic Hospital. It was during his time there that a nun who he was treating had mentioned about a pediatric plastic surgery team who had just returned from Guatemala. This had sparked great interest in his part and saw it as a perfect opportunity to give back.
I had contacted the director of Healing the Children in Connecticut, and 10 days later, I was actually on a plane to Guatemala with a pediatric orthopedic medical mission team. When I got back, I was asked to formulate my own team, and that was back in 1992. We've made annual trips the past 26 years, haven't missed one. It's one of the longest United States running medical mission teams, which I'm pretty proud of.
3 or 4 core surgeons that go on this group. There's Dr. Gunzy, Dr. Ciccanelli, Dr. Jorge Panagos, who's a Guatemalan orthopedic surgeon, and myself, who've all been going over 20 years with the other 3 going for about 25 years. We typically bring 2 or 3 supporting other visiting doctors, and then we actually have doctors from Spain, 3 to 4 doctors who do 3-year rotations going through. So we have a pretty big crew of people going, and we have to just make sure that the team doesn't get too big. We don't want people standing around. We only typically have 3 operating rooms to work with, so to bring in 20 surgeons doesn't help.
Dr. Gunzy and the other surgeons that go on these annual trips try to gather as many local healthcare professionals that practice in El Salvador to educate them on the appropriate conservative care to prevent lower extremity deformities from becoming worse and requiring a more aggressive surgical approach. Here he highlights the differences in conservative care between the U.S. and El Salvador.
If a child is born with a clubfoot in the United States, they're immediately casted, shortly casted day 1. And those casts are changed weekly until the deformity is casted out. And then if there's any deformity left, it's a very small surgical procedure. In El Salvador, where we go, children who live furthest away from the country and there's no money for healthcare or insurance, if they don't receive the necessary conservative treatment, then as they reach the age of ambulation, they start to walk on these deformities. The bones will start to deform to the pressures, and then it becomes more of an intensive surgery, not only soft tissue-wise, but bone-wise, as the child grows and you get more of a fixed deformity.
Of course, these mission trips do not happen overnight. Months of planning and preparation go into each one, and it all starts with one individual.
Dr. Gunzy is sort of the mastermind of organization. That's the stuff that people don't see. And he spends hundreds of hours before every trip getting everything organized. What do we need? What equipment do we need? What staff do we need? What transportation do we need? And then we get a lot of our materials organized. And a few weeks before we'll ship things like casting supplies, blankets, some of our medical supplies. Most of the equipment is stuff that gets donated or brought in by us for these teams, so our equipment access is pretty good for us.
It's fairly intense. The best day is when the shipping goes out 2 months before. Once that leaves and it heads off to Miami, which is picked up in Miami by the El Salvador Rotary Club, they arranged for transfer from there to El Salvador. I can finally kind of relax. The next thing is just getting on the plane and doing the work that we need to do.
Even if the team is fortunate enough to have the supplies they need to perform the surgeries, they often find themselves improvising on the spot and combining medical experience with creativity.
There's a lot of improvisation. A lot of times out of K-wires, which are stainless steel pins, we will actually bend and create our own bone staples. So that's just kind of one improvisation that we have essentially created over the past 20 years. And a lot of times you don't have the necessary items, but we've learned to improvise, and that's just one example.
Surgically, most of the improvisation is that we try to do implants that the local doctors can easily remove, which means we use mostly wires and pins rather than staples and screws. In the United States, we might use screws and implants that require specialized hardware to remove.
The team do not work alone when planning for the next trip. The Rotary Club of El Salvador work on their end to secure transportation and housing for the traveling team, as well as marketing to the local doctors and families about the upcoming mission trip. They reach out to these families in need, and then Dr. Gunzy and his team work on treating them and sorting out who may or may not need surgical intervention.
So we work with the Cuscatlán Rotary Club of El Salvador, and they are our mainstream down there to basically take care of hotel, hospital, bus transportation for the team, and then finally marketing for our arrival.
They're able to market directly to people, doctors if they have challenging cases, people who need surgery. So all these people will show up on Sunday so we can screen them.
We spend the entire day screening the 200 children, and we take the 50 most severe children and we line them up for surgery Monday through Thursday. So roughly 12 to 13 children a day.
If we can help them surgically, we make sure it's within the scope of what we can do. We typically have 1 or 2 orthopedic surgeons and then 4 to 7 podiatric surgeons so that we're able to make sure we can cover everything we need to do. And if it's something we can do, then we schedule it throughout the week.
There are children who either don't need surgery or have had surgery or just require bracing. So we bring with us an orthotic and prosthetic team. The children who need orthotics and prosthetics, we make a list of those children and they visit that orthotic and prosthetic team throughout the entire week, and they are made braces and orthotics.
With 26 mission trips and counting, the doctors have changed many children's lives and have built lasting memories and relationships along the way. Here they share their most memorable moment from the last 2.5 decades.
The first trip I made, the whole team pulled up in a bus to the town of Escuintla, Guatemala. And as we pulled into the hospital, I remember seeing a father carrying his son in a wheelbarrow because they had no other forms of transportation, and the son couldn't walk because of crippling lower extremity deformities. The child had a severe clubfoot deformity on both extremities, and we were able to operate on both. And they had traveled roughly 4 to 5 hours on foot to get from the small village. There was no form of transportation for them outside of that. So I thought that was pretty special. That was like 26 years ago. To date, that's always stuck in my mind.
Since 2003, we've been going to El Salvador. So anytime you go to the same place, over a period of 16 years, you actually get to know families, you get to know patients, because these people will come back the following year to discuss and, show us how their kid is doing. One of the most recent ones that we have some video footage of is this kid Jefferson. And just a real engaging, beautiful little 5-year-old kid who had severe untreated club feet. And when you look at the pictures of him and we have video of him, you watch him running around, walking on the sides of his feet. I mean, his feet are actually pointed backwards. And we've gotten to see him almost every year for the last 2 or 3 years after his surgery. He walks with his dad to school 2.5, 3 miles. I mean, the kid's in regular shoes running around. And it's just nice when you get to see that type of a difference that you make.
Basically, the goal is to lend our skills, create a better environment for families, get work done, make children and families happier, and go from there.
Over the last 26 years, Dr. Gunzy has seen the team grow from 14 to 35 members, comprised of healthcare providers and general volunteers. He and his team will continue to do these trips annually and encourages others to give back in any way that they can.
We encourage them to hook up with their local churches, or there's lots of volunteer organizations that they can look into as far as formulating a team, healing the children as one throughout the United States.
And I think the main thing is just that the importance of volunteerism. I think just the idea of trying to get people motivated to just try and offer some of their time to help other people at some point.
Since its inception, Small Steps has provided more than 2,500 children in Central and South America with life-changing surgeries, allowing them to live their lives without limits. For more information about the Small Steps mission or to make an organization donation, please visit podiatryinstitute.com/medicalmissionsdonations.htm.
I think that's pretty good.